shoo, baby. Bye, 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 baby. Do-da-do-day. Your papa's off to the seven seas. Don't cry, baby. Don't sigh, baby. Bye, 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 baby. Do-da-do-day. When I come back, we'll live a life of ease. Seems kinda tough now to say goodbye this way, but Papa's gotta be rough now so that he can be sweet to you another day. Bye, 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 baby. Don't cry, baby. Shoo, 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 baby. Da-da-da-day. Your Papa's off to the seven seas. Shoo, baby. Do-da-do-day. Shoo, baby. Do-da-do-day. Shoo, baby. Shoo, shoo. Quiet! I want a little bit of quiet in the house, please. She wants a little bit of quiet in the house. Her Papa's on his way to cross the seven seas, so don't you cry, oh, don't you sigh goodbye now. Shoo, shoo, baby. Shoo, 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 my baby. Shoo, goodbye, baby, don't you cry no more. Your big guitar, Papa's off to the seven seas.
Hi, my name is Matt Hess, and I live in the East Bay, and I run the store here on the Jeremiah Bryan. In January 2022, I actually started as a volunteer, and then in November 2023, they hired me as a paid staff to actually run the store. But you know, not only do I run the store, but I help in the stewards department, I help in the engine room, I help in the deck department, so I'm kind of all over the place. So I have been here since January of 2022. You know, most of these guys were, well, they were all civilians, you know. Most of them, you know, grew up in, you know, places where they didn't even see the ocean. They had to go to school to learn, you know, how ships work and how ships operate. Like the engineers, for example, you know, a lot of them worked on farms, you know, they lived on farms, so they knew how machinery worked, you know. But I know they needed to go to school to learn how, you know, steam engines worked. There was a little bit of competition sometimes between the Merchant Marine crew and the U.S. Navy Armed Guard. All the Merchant Marines, they were all volunteers, and the Navy Armed Guard were, you know, regular sailors assigned to the merchant ships, you know, and the merchant crews were paid more than the Navy Armed Guard guys. And I know in some cases there was a little bit of competition, but you know, they all, you know, work together. I remember watching an interview with the Navy Armed Guard guy, and you know, he said, you know, they all worked together. They were all on one ship carrying one cargo to one place, and they worked as a team. Well, when I started, most of our World War II guys are gone. When our shipkeeper Phil started, a majority of the crew, they were all the World War II guys. But we did have a gentleman a couple weeks ago who was actually on a Liberty ship that was operated by the U.S. Navy, and he was in his late 90s, and you know, he did get kind of emotional because he actually saw the radio operator right in front of his eyes get killed by a Japanese suicide plane. He was showing us photos on his phone, and he actually took a photo of the radio operator mangled up and dead. And he told us that, you know, he probably shouldn't keep on to that, or hold on to that photo. But, you know, he did get, you know, pretty emotional. The fact that, you know, he saw someone in front of his eyes get killed, you know. But you know, other than that, he really enjoyed his time here. You know, and he had some great stories. You know, I absolutely love this job. You know, I love the fact that, you know, I live kind of far away, and you know, it's easier for me to drive in and stay on the ship, you know, instead of driving back and forth. And that,
You live aboard here a little
yeah, yeah. And that's really cool, being able to stay on the ship, you know. And I've always loved history, you know. I've always loved military history. You know, I have a lot of family connections to World War II, and yeah, I just love working here. I love being here. You know, most people when they go to work, you know, they're kind of dreading going to work, but I love coming to work every day. So this is Miss Jerry. She was painted during World War II, and we actually have two of them. We have one up here on the port side and the other one on the starboard side. And this one was painted first. This was painted when they were coming back from Normandy in September 1944. And when they were coming into New York, so they painted it on the way over. And when they were coming into New York, they realized that it's probably not a good idea to have a naked lady up on the ship. So they painted it over. And then I think it was when the ship was in the Pacific, there's one on the other side over there that has a grass skirt. They were both up here during the war. And then when they took the ship into mothballs, you know,
Painted over. Probably.
Yeah, yeah. And so the first person to repaint it, her name was Janet Doyle, and she was actually the inspiration for Wendy the welder. She worked in Richmond Shipyard and as a welder, and she ran our store for a long time. And one of her first projects she did was she restored, I think she started with the one on the starboard side first and then the port side.
Her name again?
Miss Jerry. And so she was restored the first time in the 80s. And then about, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, down in the museum we have a really cool diorama. And it shows the offloading of cargo off of Omaha Beach a couple weeks after D-Day. And one of the people who made the diorama restored both Miss Jerry's on the gun tub. So we have these up here, and then we've got a lot of cool writing and drawings and illustrations down in the lower cargo holds. Some of them were done by, well, it's a combination of World War II ones. There were a couple done by the shipyard workers when they took out mothballs in 1979, and then there's some return Normandy 1994 trip graffiti. But the biggest one is actually up on the crow's nest. There was a comic strip in the San Francisco Chronicle, and it was illustrated by Phil Frank, and one of the main characters in the comic strip is a raven, and so up on the crow's nest during the 1994 Normandy trip, we had San Francisco Chronicle reporter Carl Nolte, who still works for the Chronicle. He wrote live dispatches from the trip, and he would write about everything that happened that day on the trip. And Phil Frank, who was still working for the Chronicle at that time, he drew a comic strip to go along with that article. And so when they were coming back through the Panama Canal, when they were coming back from the return Normandy trip, they actually, two of the crew members went all the way up there and they painted Bruce up there.
Bruce is the Raven?
Yeah, Bruce D. Raven, that's his name. Yeah. So,
So there's still a rendition of it up there?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's a little faded, but you can see it from up there. So, yeah.
That's pretty cool. Miss Jerry, heave ho, baby, heave ho. Thank you, sir.
So this is really cool. This is actually a wartime training aid. So this is where we were, cargo hold number 3, and we went into cargo hold number 2 here. And cargo hold 2 is the largest one because it goes all the way down to the keel here. And then, so we got 2 museums. We got here in cargo hold 2, and then through that hatch into cargo hold number 1. So you got 3 cargo holds forward, you got the engine room in the middle, and then you've got, after the main house here, you got cargo holds 4 and 5. And they both have a top level and a lower level here. And so, like I said, this was a wartime training aid, and it's really cool because it's got all the proper like names for things and stuff like that. But it kind of gives you a sense of, you know, what kind of look like. And they carry cargo here on the top deck too. So yeah, and then we've got the bow here, and we got the carpenter shop, which is down below, and then the chain locker, the forepeak tank, stuff like that. So yeah, so this is really cool. I think that was us in 1994, I believe. I think we were coming, I think that was right before the return to Normandy trip. They were known as sponsors. She was the wife of the head of the Secret Service for President Roosevelt. Wow. So they got the Christine bottle and a commemorative plate. And the family actually donated these back to us. Sweet. Bottles tucked away. Wow. And those are original from World War II. So you got a bunch of photos here of the Armed Guard guys, the Merchant Marine guys. And like I was saying, when they carried troops, they carried them up here on the top deck.
Oh, wow.
And then these helmets are original helmets.
M1, maybe
Yeah.
Armed Guard.
Yep. Ship. It basically looked like that. It was rusty and crusty, and in fact, in this photo, there's pigeons roosting in the wheelhouse. But they, and like Phil said, this is the only ship to sail under its own power out of the mothball fleet. So that's what it looked like when they took it out in 1979. And they went down to Pier 70, which is no longer there, but it's on the other side of the Bay Bridge. And they were in dry dock for about a year, and that's what it looked like when it came out. And that was, we've been doing cruises ever since May 21st, 1980. So that's what the ship looked like when it was brand new out of
Out of the box.
Yeah.
Normandy
Yeah.
in 1994.
So in 1993, we had to go into dry dock and get everything ready. And so the only way to get on the trip is if you were a World War II veteran or if you were a veteran of this ship. So the majority of the crew in 1994, the average crew age was 70. And in fact, Captain John, who was the captain, he was 78 years old when they went. And so they left in April 1994, and they were gone until September 1994. So this is the ship in Southampton here. This is going to England, and President Clinton is still the only president to visit an active American merchant ship, and he went on he shook hands with every single crew member in that picture. And what was really cool was some guys had World War II landing craft, and they pulled up alongside the ship, and they loaded cargo onto the landing craft.
Unbelievable.
And this photo is really cool. This was the one and only time that the Tower Bridge was opened for an American merchant ship.
It's cool.
And
Coming back and going out.
this is coming home. So we were gone from April 1994 to September 1994. And down in San Pedro, there's another ship called the Lame Victory. And they were supposed to go with us in 1994, but they couldn't. But came back from Normandy, and I said that the Lame Victory here was waiting for us over here. So that's the Lane, and that's us.
Beautiful. That's right.
And I bought all these little things, like the cigarettes, the candy, the gum, stuff like that. And then Phil, it literally took Phil like a day to build these cabinets with the plexiglass. So this was a project Phil and I worked on, and the longest part was getting all that stuff.
Shoo, shoo, baby, da-da-da-day. Your papa's off to the seven seas. Shoo, baby, do-da-do-day. Shoo, baby, do-da-do-day. Shoo, baby, shoo, shoo. Quiet! I want a little bit of quiet in the house, please. She wants a little bit of quiet in the house. Her papa's on his way to cross the seven seas, so don't you cry, oh, don't you sigh goodbye now. Shoo, shoo, baby. Shoo, 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 my baby. Shoo, goodbye, baby, don't you cry no more. Your big guitar, papa's off to the seven seas. Seems kinda tough now to say goodbye this way, but papa's gotta be rough now so that he can be sweet to you another day. Shh, baby. Shh, baby. Shoo, 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 baby, goodbye, goodbye. Your papa's off to the seven seas, the seven seas. Your big tall papa's off to the seven seas.